Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. We are beginning the second day of the Culminating experience presentation by the Berklee Global Jazz Institute master students. I would like to acknowledge the staff helping, starting with our dean, Rom Langu, our artistic director, Danilo Perez, Mary McClory, and today we have Farai helping, keeping us on time. Also, the crew helping with the sound and everything. Also, a reminder about Wednesday, tomorrow night, we will hold a concert at the David Friend Recital at, actually no, at the Cafe 933. I've been really pointed out that I'm giving the wrong information, as usual. Kai 939. Yes, as rehearsed. And it's a pleasure to start with the first student presenting. His name is Connor Kent. Connor is a drummer and an educator from Southern California. He earned a bachelor's degree in jazz study at the University of North Texas, where he was member of the famed 1 O'Clock Lab Band and performed on the Grammy-nominated album Lab 2015. After working as an in-demand musician, educator, and recording artist in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, he transitioned his career to New York City. Kent's collect a trio called Paragon, and they released their debut record, Keen, on the Outside Music label in 2018, which was reviewed in Downbeat. Kent's musical career has taken him across North America, Europe, and Asia, and he will head to Costa Rica and Panama this summer with our trip with the Berklee Global Jazz Institute. I will also like to acknowledge his advisor, Chase Mooring. Please, warm applause for Chase. And we're also very honored to have in our committee, Terry Lynn Carrington. Please welcome Terry. Thank you. Connor Kent.
Thank you, Marco. Thank you for being here. As you said, my name is Connor. I'm from Southern California, and the thesis presentation I'm giving today is entitled The Unique Perspective of Drummers in the Art of Composition. This project documents my personal journey into learning composition and developing my voice as a drummer and composer. This project allowed me to grow and by exploring the music of other drummer composers and delving into their process, inspiration, and techniques.
So I would say in general, I think drummers have an advantage and they can get over the shortcomings if you believe that rhythm and form is more important than pitches and harmony, which I do.
So that was a Grammy Award-winning drummer and composer, John Hollenbeck, who I was fortunate to get to interview as part of my research. In this project, I wanted to highlight some of the unconventional compositional techniques and ideas that I think are uniquely related to drummers. Many non-drummer composers use these techniques as well, and I hope to inspire other instrumentalists to think more like drummers. The process of this project was researching, analyzing scores and lead sheets. I interviewed drummers, listened to many records, and figured out what compositional devices I thought were particularly drummer-like. And I decided to base my own compositions on those techniques. I'm going to show you 4 of the compositions I wrote this year and which compositional devices inspired them. Before we jump into the music, I'd like to introduce you to the musicians you'll be hearing. Aaron Dutton on alto and soprano, Luke Norris on tenor saxophone, Alonzo on trumpet, Noe on piano, Ben on double bass, who's joining us, and obviously myself on drums and percussion. The first tune, 20 Digits, was the first thing I started composing at the Global Jazz Institute. And this is an exercise in composing without judgment. In my interview with John Hollenbeck, he spoke about sitting down at the piano and feeling paralyzed when you try to write something great. So instead, try to write something based on an exercise, and then you don't know whether it's good or bad. It just is what it is, and that gives you like a cell to start creating a full-fledged piece. So the inspiration for this was picking 2 cell phone numbers and assigning each of those numbers corresponding pitches as scale degrees of C major. As you can see there, this allowed me to write melodic material without feeling like it was good or bad. It just is exactly what I wanted it to be. It was a melody based on a phone number, and that gave me the source material to write more of this. Another part of this composition was I set it in a meter that could be felt in multiple ways. So I call this rhythmic reharmonization, where I present a rhythmic melody and then harmonize it with different pulses. So in figure 1, you can see there's 18 beats, and it can be either felt in 9 groups of 2 or 6 groups of 3. And figure 2 shows how the same bass line can be written in those 2 different ways, either as 16th notes in 9/8 or triplets in 6/4. The last thing that I want to highlight in this piece was the use of rubato and free interpretation of the melody as a nod to drummer-composer Paul Motion. Here's 20 digits. Thank you. That was 20 digits. Every theme that you heard, or every melodic part of the soprano was the same sequence of numbers, and every composed melody of the tenor was that same sequence of numbers. The other thing I forgot to mention was a focus on thinking of shifts between dark and light that Danilo talked about. I spoke with a lot of my classmates to try to come up with different harmonic sequences that would shift back and forth, and you could hear that shift really prominently going into the soprano solo. The next piece is entitled Crunch. As the recording session, at the end of last semester grew nearer, I realized that I was under a time crunch, and instead of trying to start from scratch, I decided to take a common song form, the 12-bar blues, and just mess it up a little bit. A common theme that I've come across with composers, and especially drummers, is the idea of collecting sounds and textures. So I decided to borrow some harmonic textures from the blues, and I also, kind of in another drummer fashion, created some odd phrasing by taking some beats out, adding some beats here and there. And then also I wanted to approach this, especially in the improvisation, with a zero gravity inspired approach, which is a concept that comes from Wayne Shorter that Danilo has taught us in the Global Jazz Institute, where we're kind of taking some of the material and improvising on it and deconstructing it and reconstructing it without any preconceived ideas, but letting things happen. So this is Crunch. Thank you. That was Crunch. This next composition still doesn't have a title, so if you have any ideas, talk to me afterwards. I find that drummers oftentimes write with a groove in mind because of what our role typically is, and I find that also as percussionists we're seeking out rhythms from around the world to incorporate into our music. So this piece I incorporated Afro-Cuban styles, which is kind of a classic pairing of Latin and swing that's inspired from the Cubop movement in the 50s. I used this vamp called the Descarga Cachao that I took from a tune that I used for the Afro-Cuban sections, and I found that the syncopation that this vamp has really sets up metric modulation of dotted quarter notes very well. With that metric modulation, I went back to odd phrasing like in Crunch by taking some beats out, adding some beats, and using metric modulation to give it a lot of twists and turns. You can see that I shortened that Descarga Cachao phrase to 2 bars of 4/4 and a bar of 7/8 for that first section, and then expand it back out where the dotted quarter note equals the half note of the next swing section. You'll hear that. There's a lot of odd phrases and metric modulations to keep a listener on their toes. And the last thing I wanted to point out, when I spent time with Terry Lynn, she mentioned that drummers often have a pure way of composing because it can't be based on technique. You can't just let your knowledge do the work for you. Your melody has to come from within a lot of times. So this melody, I just sang it into my phone, and that single kind of voice melody for the A section and B section was developed into a piece where I explored a lot of different tempos, styles, and harmonies with multiple horn writing. And anyway, here is Untitled. The final piece that I'm going to show you today is entitled 5/9. During my interview with Hollenbeck, he spoke about the cell of a composition, which is the kind of the seed of it, can be inspired by anything, especially non-musical things. So just like the cell for 20 digits was writing a melody based off of a phone number, this piece was inspired by a polyrhythm that I heard, and I wanted to figure out how I could make it into a groove. So I achieved this 5/9 polyrhythm by creating a 3-bar phrase in 5/4, where the 5 is quarter notes every 3 beats, and the 9 is 3/5, or every 5th triplet if you're looking at the second figure. In this piece, I also applied some new harmonic concepts, new to me, and I focused on orchestration, so the rolls and registers. So when I was trying to explore more harmonic concepts, as that's typically a weakness of drummers, because it's not part of our instrument. I talked to a lot of people, but especially my classmates Luke and Noe, who also played on this. We talked about different sounds and trying to label these things that I knew I had in my ears, but I didn't know what they were called or how to achieve them. And so they showed me these types of harmonies, and then I said, what better way to really internalize this than to write a piece of music with it right now? So I took this 5/9 polyrhythm and this harmony and said, I'm going to make a merge of those into this piece. And to give this piece some more drama and a stronger character, Chase recommended that I could really think about orchestration. So what if I give the horns a rhythm section roll and vice versa? And what would it sound like if I changed the register and placed things in extreme high and low octaves? And here is 5/9.
Check, check, check.
Congratulations, Connor, this beautiful music. I will immediately give the microphone to Terry.
I'll go first. Okay. Yes, great job, Connor.
Thank you.
Really amazing, yes. And just, you told me that you hadn't really been writing too much before this, like
No,
something
not much.
crazy, like you'd written only a couple of songs before this?
Yeah.
So I think that you're really onto something, and I think you should really continue writing,
Thank you.
because I think it helps also define your playing, your voice. Your voice writing will help further define your playing voice, because you're getting into territories that I'm not sure that you've really gotten into other than through the lens of somebody else, right? So congratulations. Great job. I don't have a whole lot to say, but I will make a couple of comments. I know you must have done this on purpose for why you didn't have the lead sheet for 20 digits and Untitled. For me, the lead sheet would have helped, but...
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want it to be distracting, and I couldn't get it to. It took a lot of work for the 5/9 to get the video to try to do that and sync it up, and I didn't know exactly how to do that for the other ones without it being distracting and taking like a ton of time to try to get all the individual clips and line them to have like a scrolling video like that.
Oh, I see. But
even the lead sheet, it's like really long, so I'd have to gone through a lot of slides. I guess I could have.
Or just the part of it, even if
Yeah.
you didn't get it to move,
That's
part would have been good. Just like for like the beginning melody of 20 digits, I wanted to look, because it would have helped me to figure out like the melodies, like which notes of the phone numbers you used in what sequences.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And also about that piece, it was really clever how you did that with the phone numbers. I also noticed you didn't mention which phone numbers they are. Though I do know. Yeah, very clever. So the harmony and the chords, I know you talked about light and dark, but I wanted to know more about that process. Like, how did you come up with the harmony?
Well, for 20 digits specifically, since all the melodic material was in C major, I didn't want it to be in C major. So I was trying to find the colors that worked with like those notes in different phrases. And then the actual kind of shifts that I was thinking about happened more in the solo section. So we were mostly in like F Lydian sound, and I was trying to find things that contrasted that. So it went from, it was like F Lydian, G major, C major, and then it went to B flat Lydian. And then when it was in B flat Lydian for the solo section, for the piano solo, it there to like C sharp minor, and I'm trying to remember the rest. Then when it goes to
yeah, no, I mean, okay, so you're telling me what they are, but I just meant like how did you get inspired to, how did you, what was the process?
Oh, yeah, just playing, trying to find chords that had a lot of non-continuous notes, like notes that, like there were some common tones, but a lot of things shifted from sharps to flats. And I was playing around with a couple things. I found this like E flat minor 13. I didn't know if it was minor 13 or E flat minor flat 13. No, it was E flat minor flat 13. And then I took it to a pianist and said, "Is this flat 13 or flat 6? And can we just talk about it?" So I went to with Chase and with Noe, like, "Can you play me some variations of this and that? And then can you try this?" Because when I play voice leading, it's not always sounding great. So I took it to the experts and had them try a few different things out for me.
Okay, that's great. There was another question I had. Let's see. Oh, like when you said more, I'd like to just hear a little more about why you've called rhythmic reharmonization.
Yeah. Because so if you have a melody and you put the one chord underneath it, that melody is going to be painted in a certain light. But if you put the sixth chord underneath it, all of a sudden it's painted in a totally new light, even if the notes are exactly the same. So this rhythm can either be or.
Right. I get that part. I just meant your choice of words with reharmonization.
Oh, well, just because it's when you change the harmony, if you took an existing melody, kept it the same, and changed the pulse, or in this case, the harmony underneath it, it gives it a different feeling. So the rhythm is the same, but the pulse changes, so it gives it a totally different feeling.
Okay, I understand. Some people may argue with you that you didn't change the harmony. So,
oh, yeah, I'm not changing the...
No, I understand.
Oh,
I'm just trying to make you think about the word choice.
Got it.
That's all.
Yeah.
Because some people could argue with you that you didn't change any harmony.
Yeah, that's
You know
why
what I'm saying?
rhythmic, yeah.
Okay. And I know, but still you use the word
Term, got it.
reharmonization, which, I mean, there's probably another way to say that. And then, and you were looking for the name of your untitled piece. And you had, the motif when the melody came in.
Mm-hmm.
You can, look at the words that, maybe look at what inspired you and look at the words that fit the melody.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think I told you this when you played it before, but the melody is the same exact number of
Syllables.
notes, syllables, as, hey, it's me you're talking to.
Yeah.
And that song stays in my head because the melody says, hey, it's me you're talking to, right? So yours is kind of like that, and so it'd be cool if you thought of, words, because your melody, though it's the same syllables, doesn't work with those words, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to find the words that work with melodies, and that maybe takes you into being a lyricist, And the only other comment I have is, would love to have heard the drums louder.
Mm. Yeah, I'm not a good mixer.
Well, the first thing though, it's very selfless to do that, but it just was out of balance with, to me, I didn't, I would have loved to hear just a little more presence from you. Because I know that you have presence. Congratulations.
Thank you, Terry.
Hey, Connor. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Having worked with you as your advisor over the last semester, I can kind of reiterate what Terry said, just the sheer amount of work that you went into throughout this entire process, because like you said, you had barely composed much of anything before this project, and by the end, I'm like, seems like you're a full-fledged composer. You're really you spent so much time working on all of this stuff, so just congratulations with all of that. And I think throughout this whole process, you've been adding tons of tools to your tool bag, right?
Absolutely.
You've been putting some spice and some colors and I encourage you also maybe to think about taking things out as well. Because, even though it seems like you started from scratch or from little, that's not exactly true, because you've been playing and listening to music since a very young age. So actually there's so much stuff in there already with the aesthetic of how you listen, how you hear sounds and stuff. And so also thinking about those things and, what are some of the things that I gravitate to? How can I take out some of those things or reconsider them, add in some of the wrong things, add some new aesthetics into the thing. I encourage you to think about that. And we've already talked about, for example, with harmony, right?
Yeah.
We talked about, what if we throw out all those things and we just start from a few random notes and start to find, new ways of interpreting stuff. I think you have an amazing exploration. You've begun such an amazing process. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chase.
Connor, congratulations. So, do I understand you said that you never composed music before?
No, I've written a couple pieces. I did some stuff in my undergrad, obviously, for arranging classes, but nothing that wasn't just an exercise until last year I wrote a tune or two.
Okay. Well, I listening to the music my first comment, especially if I would not heard your explanation, I would not even think of it. But you really made, the music seems quite complex rhythmically, especially, but you made it sound, the way it sounds very natural, which is always beautiful when you have like odd rhythms and the concept and the band make it sound like you don't even like feel it, right?
Yeah.
And that's an amazing accomplishment. And also because I was impressed by the basically randomness a little bit of your method, and I don't know if this was part of your presentation, and because we have to cut you out a little bit. What is your plan from here?
Yeah, some of my future goals, plans would be to continue filming more interviews and to make a short documentary as an inspiration for other drummers that want to compose, that maybe feel a little bit scared or nervous at the thought of dealing with, pitches and harmony, because there's so many ways that you can start writing that I talked, with other drummers, where you don't have to feel that judgment of, I don't really know what I'm doing. And as Hollenbeck said in the beginning, if rhythm and form is the most important part of music, then we already have that at least, So yes. I want to do that, and then continue studying other drummers that I admire. Getting more into Paul Motion, Victor Lewis, Jeff Tain Watts. There's a lot of. When I started this project, I was like, okay, who am I going to choose to study? There's only a handful of drummer composers that I can think of, and by the end, there's so many, especially in today's age. There's so many drummers that are writing amazing music. So to continue studying their music.
I think that the challenge that I would pose for you too, and maybe you're already doing it, but according to what you're saying, is write a ballad, and probably you will have to think about different things, but it will be something that will really challenge you this other part.
Absolutely.
Congratulations, beautiful music.
Thank you, Marco.
Hi, Connor.
What's up, Tanya?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I knew you before your journey here at Berklee, so, I'm really, really proud of the progress you've made. This was fantastic.
Thank
really, congratulations. A couple of things that I really enjoyed was just your compositional curiosity is inspiring, particularly for drummers that don't tend to delve in that area too often, And I also love how you're able to grasp onto those, some of those jewels of knowledge that we get from our teachers that aren't necessarily part of like a syllabi or anything, but just something like how you incorporated the concept of light and dark, or some of the things that Terry Lynn mentioned to you. I can feel that in your compositions. It was, just great. One thing I would have loved to hear a little more of, you had some really interesting instrumental timbres going on with how you orchestrated with the trumpet and the sax, or the alto and the tenor. I would have loved to hear how the voices of the instruments influenced your compositional ideas with this too, because there was a lot of just color in all of that. So as a horn player, I would love to hear how a drummer sees that, how a drummer interprets those colors and the rhythmic aspect of everything. But it was great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Connor, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. I had to be the devil advocate here, which, first of all, I want to congratulate you. And that's a lot of work that you put into, and it's been a fascinating experience working with you this year. And it, I take my time before I, have a whole feeling about it. And first of all, I want to, side with everything they say, but I have a list of things here that I think this is the moment I can share, and it's all done in a friendly manner. First of all, I'm really, I wish I would have heard more of that composing. We would have got to work more throughout the year.
Yeah.
So I'm encouraging you just to stay. I agree and side with Terry that you're gonna find something that I think it needs to develop, which is this idea of the drums as being something external to who you are. And in our culture, the drum being the melodic instrument, not just the piano and the, you know. So I want you to think about that a little more. In other words, it's not external, it's not there, it's like yourself. And one exercise that I've been thinking about, how do we exercise that for a drummer to learn that the drum is not about hitting something and making a sound. You just put the name of the drums on yourself and see if you will, how will you hit yourself into the toms, and if your head is the cymbal, how would you play yourself? And that gives you a sense of life into the instrument that you're playing. Because it comes alive because you are playing it. But if the drum, is easy to disregard the drum as something that you hit. You know, it's got a life, it's got a voice. What is it? You know what I mean? Yeah. So now that you are thinking about composition and arranging, I would really think about, you know, how do these drums, how did that tune, what sound, what is the melody in the drums? You know, I want you to work on that. You know, like you can do it now. You have a sense of color. Like the drum itself is my piano. So if I'm hitting something and it sounds like, oh, what is that cymbal sound is like? Then think about your head or your body. How would you know, like find different ways to really relate to it in that way. So it doesn't sound like boom, boom, ba, boom, boom. You know what I mean? Just work on it and get a life out of that instrument, you know? Okay. So the thing when you have an idea, I want you to stick to I want to see you when I'm 90 years old, if I get to 90 and you're like 50 or something, whatever age. I want to see you like when Terry Lynn and we're talking about the things that matters to us in our youth. You know, like, and disregard them if you're really conscious of. In other words, commit to this, but leave it. Don't leave it in the head only. It has to come from the ground up. You know, impact a society to dance with in a 17/8 or whatever, but go for it. You know what I mean? Like, leave this experience of the music. I don't want to be counting. I think you're definitely in the line. I mean, this stuff is really interesting to me because you got like, but leave it. Keep going. Just be stubborn about it. Almost like how I hate it. And I want to leave you with a question. The difference between intuition and what you think of. Is intuition the higher form of intelligence to you? That's it. There's no answer to that. Just think about it. We can be sedated by too much education. And we don't value intuition as a form of intelligence. Do you dig?
Connor Kent. Yes. Beautiful. Thank you so much. Please stay with us for the next presentation in 10 minutes with Benjamin Chapta.